When settlers first arrived on these shores, they had all the raw materials of a new continent at their disposal. They harvested vast stands of timber, tilled rich soils, and mined valuable ores. But how did these early New England settlers utilize caves? Now, we will meet Peter Rzasa, an avid naturalist and historian, who discovered a previously unknown marble cave in Seymour, Connecticut. He has researched how early settlers exploited the cave, and has even found intact archaeological remains nestled deep in a forest of hemlocks. Now we will investigate these marble caves and learn about the valuable commodity produced there 200 years ago. They are the sources of ancient myths and legends, the hideouts of outlaws and smugglers, places of awe and wonder for explorers and curiosity seekers. They were created through a perfect combination of raw materials, natural forces, and time. They are as beautiful as they are foreboding. They are caves. Now, through careful research and investigation, we will seek to reveal their forgotten stories and descend deep underground to experience their beauty and mystery firsthand. Follow along as we go in search of caves and legends.
My name is Pete Rzasa, and I've had an interest in nature and colonial history since I was about in 4th, 5th grade. Well, these caves were in the process of being built 500 million years ago. Seymour at that time was the middle of an island, volcanic island, in a sea called the Iapetus Sea. This island, with a coral reef formed around it, and coral reef composed of lime from the crustaceans that deposited on there in a coral. And a lime ring was formed around this volcanic island, or coral island. During the next tens of millions of years, the volcano went off, and the lava covered up that whole area, covered up the coral reef, covered up some of the ocean there. And it stayed that way for hundreds of millions of years after that. But those continents were slowly coming together. Eventually, the Iapetus island disappeared, and the Atlantic started appearing. And our Seymour Island with the volcano and the old coral was being subducted under the earth, and then the continents were colliding together. But the coral reef containing the lime was being subjected to tremendous pressures and tremendous temperatures. And that lime metamorphosized into marble. And it was covered by a schist, hornblende schist on top of that from the volcano. This is what the material looks like now that is overlaying the marble in Seymour. This is hornblende schist. They would have a band of marble anywhere from 2 feet to 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall, with the hornblende schist above it. And the hornblende schist might be another 10 or 15 feet higher than that. Somewhere probably between 1780 and 1800, the farmers in that area, having a need for lime, they knew where to look for marble in New England. And they decided to do a little bit of exploration and digging. So they dig up the side of the hill, and lo and behold, after getting rid of the schist, they found marble veins. They said, well, look, there's marble here. There's a use for marble. And some of the uses are, well, number one, farming, agriculture, planting corn and flax, wheat, different types of crops. But they found the soil to be very acidic. They were looking to somehow sweeten their fields. It was well known at that time that the farmers would sweeten their fields. Sweeten meaning to raise the pH from acidic pH up to a neutral or a more alkaline pH where plants can thrive more fruitfully, especially things like corn and the wheat and so on. So they said, well, we've got this marble now. We can use it for agriculture purposes. There were also needs for mortar to create cement, whitewash. They would also use it for sweetening up their commodes where they had to go to the bathroom. The lower Naugatuck Valley is heavily industrial. They would smelt iron, and they needed the lime to take out the impurities of the iron and create the slag. So there are different purposes and different needs for lime at that time. Probably farmers themselves that made or discovered the marble in Seymour, and they're the ones that created the lime kiln. Probably around 1800, between 1800 and 1820, 1810, that's when the kiln was constructed. There was a door here, iron door, leading into the center of the kiln. There was a hole, which is called a hopper, where the marble would be tossed into the kiln, and along with maybe 10 cords of wood or charcoal. It would be intermixed, and then the door would be closed, and then once it was filled up, it would be ignited. And for the next 6 or 7 days, these poor guys would be letting the marble cook. The things were burning for 7 days, and then we looked up on the hill, and there's a big red glow up there. You think the devil had come down, especially back in the 1600s, 1700s. You think the devil had come down and was causing trouble there, bringing people into the netherworld. So it was a little bit scary for people to go up to those areas. And the limers, they were probably a little bit scary people too, the way they looked, and always dirty, and probably with the soot from the smoke and everything. After a week or so, making sure it didn't flame up, they would let it cool for another few days, and then they would open the door and rake out or smash anything that's above, smaller pieces, and rake it out and put it in barrels. Now, marble is calcium carbonate, and if you heat it for 1500 degrees Fahrenheit long enough, you will drive off the carbon dioxide, so you wound up with calcium oxide, which is called quicklime. The quicklime could be barreled up, and people would come with their carts and oxen. There were roads along the area, old mining roads and farm roads, and they would take that to their farms and place it, spread it out on their fields, or they would take it to another place where they made whitewash, or would sell it for purposes such as whitewash or for mortar and cement.
Today, we are in Seymour to see the cave and the kiln in person. One of the first things we notice is the presence of drill marks. This indicates that the marble was removed by blasting. It appears the marble was quarried away, leaving this large open void.
So the whole park has a maybe 6-foot thick layer of marble that cuts across it. This whole collapse area looks like this was dug out by humans to expose the marble. And we don't really know how much of it was quarried away. Did it come out further, or did they just take a little bit out of this corner?
But what about the cave? Behind the quarry, we find a small entrance. We climb over some fill and enter a cave passage. It seems the quarrying operation must have ceased before this point. But no one knows exactly how large the cave actually was before it was quarried away. Following the marble outcrop, we find several small cave openings and more drill marks indicating quarrying. We enter an opening just big enough to crawl into. The passage gets slightly smaller, but continues, then makes a left turn, then a right turn.
That's tight. So Mark, what do you think? That's cool. It's like a little, it's just enough for a person. Woo!
Could a lime burner have crawled this far into the cave to assess the extent of the marble deposit? It is unlikely. We may be in a completely untouched part of the cave. Finally, the dirt reaches the ceiling, and we can no longer proceed.
It's a whole labyrinth under there. It's twists and turns, and it's a whole world. I don't think any Native American would have ever entered this, and if they did, they would have made it part of their mythology because it's so strange and unusual from the surface world, from anything else that they ever would have seen. But there would be no practical reason for anyone to go in there besides us. No miners, no Native Americans, no hunters just looking to shelter from the storm.
This cave is the, best example of a solutional cave where you've got maybe 4 or 5 feet of nice, very clean and pure marble with a schist layer above it. So the schist layer is what's kind of protecting the marble, and it's sandwiched. I don't know what's below it, maybe another layer of schist, but you have the sandwiched layer of marble. And it's actually dipping down into the hill, deeper into the cave. So it's got potential to keep going for a long ways, except for mud and dirt that blocks it. There's no question it wasn't quarried, it wasn't formed by man. This was formed by moving water.
Here in Seymour, we have witnessed an ancient marble cave, an historic lime production site. We have learned about the origin of the cave hundreds of millions of years ago, and about how local farmers utilized the marble found here. By 1837, the lime kiln was abandoned. Its stone walls, still standing, now serve as a monument to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the lime burners who once toiled in these hills.
When you lift a stone up and put it on a higher plane, one stone another, it's called potential energy. That energy put into that wall 150 years ago, 200 years ago, his energy is still in that wall. So part of him is still in that wall. And until that stone or that kiln is knocked down, part of him is still there. Part of his energy is still in those old structures. And that's what really amazes me. I get respect for that. And I have respect for the guys and the people that made these stone structures. And I just get really impressed by it, and I respect that.